Hi there, I'm John Michael Garapi and this is Popcorn Roulette. Each episode I invite guests on the show, they suggest a movie, I watch the movie, we get together and we talk about it. Today on my show, I have Nick Lambert. Nick, how you doing?
How you doing, John Michael?
Nick, who are you and what do you do?
I work for security. I graduated from college recently. I am a stay-home state criminal justice major. I love going to concerts. I love hanging around with friends. I actually recently went to a concert this past Saturday. Foo Fighters, great show. Recommend for everybody.
Yeah, they're still doing a good job, is what it comes down to.
Oh,
they
yeah.
haven't calmed down.
No, no, I haven't. No, it's always a good show.
Yeah. Today we're going to be talking about Ready to Rumble, starring David Arquette, Scott Caan, Oliver Platt, and directed by Brian Robbins. But before we watch any movie, we have a snack. Now, see, this is what happened. I told you that this one's a secret because previously we were supposed to talk about Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and you switched it up on me and said, let's talk about Ready to Rumble. But before that happened, I had already gotten an appropriate snack for Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Okay.
So today we happen to have one Wonka Bar.
Wow.
This for you, sir, is for you to open.
Oh.
I certainly hope you like chocolate.
Oh, I absolutely love chocolate.
I was afraid it was just going to be like, okay, I'm going to get this for him, and then he's just going to be like, no. What the heck, I hate chocolate.
And I got a golden ticket.
There's a golden ticket inside.
It's always fun.
Give me a piece.
Yeah, take a few.
I'm wondering, it's chocolate.
Yeah, just like a regular Hershey bar or.
Anyhow, getting back to Ready to Rumble, why don't you explain the plot to us?
All right, so there are two, let's just say they're more of crazy, goofy kind of characters. It's pretty much start out in Wyoming, and then they have a particular wrestling fetish. They actually love this particular guy. His name is Jimmy King. Now, Jimmy King is like the equivalent of like a Hulk Hogan of modern day. So they're trying to chase his dream kind of thing, like trying to find who he was.
Well, the general idea is that Jimmy King gets kicked off of the WCW, which is one of the interesting things about this is that this movie is very much a WCW movie. This movie is not just like about wrestling, but it's about...
No, it's just the company itself.
One of the major companies at the time.
Yeah, of WCW. If you know, most wrestling fans, like my age, because I'm 25, like millennial, they believe that, from 1995 to 2001 was like the absolute best time to be alive as a wrestling fan. They call it the Attitude Era, the Monday Night Wars. You have WWE manpower by Vincent Kennedy McMahon and his McMahon regime up in the Northeast area, based out of New York and Connecticut area. That's all he's been still of his father. He owned his own father's company. He had to buy him out in the 80s. His goal was just to make it the #1 conglomerate promotion in the world. That's his role. Then you have WCW, who's owned by billionaire Ted Turner out of Atlanta, Georgia. He owns CNN and TNT,
et
cetera, like that. So they had a war going on because one of the main points in the beginning of the Monday Night Wars were, who Lex Luger.
Yeah.
So he came from WWF. Now he's down to.
But that was much of the controversy in the first. Well, not controversy, but they were stealing wrestlers from WWE.
He was the first
Hollywood
one.
Hulk Hogan specifically.
That was that was 94.
Yeah, like taking the key character from what used to be World Wrestling Federation. And like stealing that for WCW was this super win that all of a sudden made the competition just go through the roof.
And at that time alone, you have more like cartoon kind of thing. Like they had, Duke the Dumpster Drozer. They had Doink the Clown. Yeah. They have, the Goon. Like they have more like kids.
It felt like it was for kids.
Yeah. And then once about 1994 with the acquisition of Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage, and then they already
had Ric Flair on their side.
They already had Ric Flair because he made a stint in WWF around 1991, 1992, around there. He actually won the, I would say today, this is the greatest Royal Rumble of all time, 1992. It's the greatest Royal Rumble of all time because that was actually the first time that they actually had a World Heavyweight title defense at the Royal Rumble itself.
Yeah. Let's get back to the movie because I knew this would happen.
Yeah.
And I love this. This is the reason why I was really happy we were talking about Ready to Rumble because that would give us a chance to talk about both.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But so why did you choose this movie?
The reason why is because I'm into very, very low budget kind of, it's like I'm looking for a train wreck always.
Yeah.
So I saw this movie when it first came out, 2000, 2001. I was only probably about seven or eight because it all tied in.
Yeah.
In 2000, that time, they had David Arquette as the World Heavyweight Champion at WCW. It was like a stunt kind of thing.
There was crossover going on between
because that's one of the things, because from the Monday Night Wars, they're always trying to one-up each other and all that. That's why in 1997 in particular, WWF had all the star power they need, so they had Mike Tyson. WCW had Dennis Rodman.
Right.
I actually like Dennis Rodman. He's a kind of character kind of guy. So Mike Tyson joined DX, which is the more powerful group in WWF with Triple H, Shawn Michaels, etc. While Dennis Rodman, he joined NWO, which was established by Hulk Hogan and Razor Ramon, which is Scott Hall. Because he actually had legal problems because he was actually using the moniker Razor Ramon, but Scott Hall, and that all kind of kerfuffle and all that. And he had Kevin Nash. Those are the three who made for NWO.
Yeah. Let me jump ahead to the negative review.
Already?
Already. Well, there's a reason why I wanted to actually get into some of the questions that actually the negative review brings up. Here's the thing. This movie, I don't have to dig hard to find the negative reviews.
Yeah, I know.
I think we're in the 30s on Rotten Tomato, which is it's fine. I mean, it's like there's no specific reason why one has to agree with the critics or anything along those lines. We already admit the fact this isn't supposed to be a good movie. Nobody's actually attempting to make this a good movie. No. But so the key point is finding a review that had something interesting to say that was negative. So Roger Ebert had some points he wanted to bring out. Michael Buffer appears in the movie and duly performs "Are You Ready to Rumble?" And so earnestly was I not ready to rumble that I wanted the camera to follow him out of the arena instead of staying for a 3-cage fight to the death. The problem with Ready to Rumble is that our hero is not a wrestler but an actor, Oliver Platt. Platt is a good comic actor and I have liked him in a lot of movies, but here he is not well used and occupies a role that would have been better filled by a real wrestler. That is demonstrated every time Diamond Dallas Page is on the screen, playing himself with such ferocity that Platt seems to be playing Jimmy the King in a key heard only by himself. Is Ebert making a good point here? Like, what's your feelings about Platt's performance?
So, because Oliver Platt, I think he's mostly played that bad guy, kind of guy that you don't really like kind of thing.
Yeah, like the clerk or the accountant that's coming in and telling you all the things you don't want to hear.
Yeah, he's like a nuisance.
So what we're saying is you can't separate the nuisance part of his performance with the way he acts. What's your opinion of actors who are wrestlers, just in general? When we put Hulk Hogan or The Rock up there, do they make good wrestlers? Is the transition work?
So you have to have that, they call it charisma.
Yeah.
You gotta have that aura about you, gets the audience. The best obviously would be Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
He seems to cross over well.
Yeah, he's a crossover. He's just named him again the highest paid actor. And he actually made double what he made last year. He's making double it again this year. Another one is Dave Bautista. He was in Guardians of the Galaxy. That's his mainstream success. He did a couple other movies. He was actually in the recent James Bond movie as one of the henchmen.
I'm kind of curious about because they both seem to do a good job acting. I'm actually kind of curious also about the Rowdy Roddy Piper in They Live. Yeah. Does that work?
Yeah, with him alone, because I believe if you can talk as a they call it a promo. If you can talk, then you have some success of being in the acting world. Yeah. Because all it is in professional wrestling is it's a soap opera.
Right.
It's a male soap opera. That's all it really is. It could be a startup job to bigger things in Hollywood. Another name. John Cena. I have my own opinions about him, because as a fan, he is a good guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does charity work, and I respect that. You know, he's now making it big. As a comedy guy, I think he's trying to be like The Rock,
Right.
but he can't be like The Rock.
He can't do
yeah,
it.
No,
Yeah.
no, but he's getting his own success.
Let's talk about Arquette and Can.
Yeah.
Their characters, just in general.
Yeah.
Like, I've heard a lot of criticism, people being like, that's not what real wrestling fans are like. This is an exaggeration that makes us all look bad.
Yeah.
Like, is that a decent argument, or do you think that's not fair? Or?
You know, how they have the stereotypical wrestling's real, you know, kind of thing.
Like they're
absolutely, you know.
Yeah.
And then there's other people like, this is absolutely 1,000% fake. Why would you ever fall, you know, why would you actually like that? People who are non-fans are thinking, oh yeah, this is like ballerina or whatever. They actually don't punch. They don't actually kick. They don't do the movements like that.
Well, this is also a switchover during that time period, because before the WCW had fallen, I think there was still this thought process that there was still this heavy on kayfabe of like, we need to make sure that we never break character. At the audience might know this is fake, but we're never going to admit to it.
Yeah, no.
You know?
No, absolutely not. You know, with kayfabe alone, that was a time-honored tradition with the 80s, 90s. It died down after, you know, the Monday Night Wars and everything else, the Ruthless Aggression era, which was at 2001 to about 2006, 2007. After that, it's all the PG era. Good guys always have to be the good guy, and the bad guy has to be the bad guy. But one of my favorites, his name is Kevin Owens. He's actually one of the bigger guy, but he can do acrobatics, and he can walk the walk and talk the talk.
Yes.
Kind of thing, because he plays a heel, but he's a likable heel. That's the art that they lost today. Like, I'm going to do everything in my power to be the bad guy and make fun of you and everything else, and I don't want you to like me. Well, today, people are cheering for that. And that's one of the problems today is kayfabe, it's dead.
While we're talking about the concept of kayfabe and like the show being unrealistic, let's talk about David Arquette's performance in the WCW.
Yeah.
What was David Arquette doing in the WCW?
So David Arquette,
The actor, I mean, just as a reminder, this is just the actor from the movie.
Yeah, so David Arquette is a lifelong wrestling fan. It was just crossover work with Ready to Rumble. Now, Vince Russo was the head writer for WWF during the Attitude Era. Some people think he was the architect of guys like Stone Cold, The Rock, Mankind, bring that flavor of pop culture around the 90s, because around then, you know, you have your South Parks, you have your Friends. At that time, they were going from kid to that.
Yeah.
And that was like probably one of the recipes to beating WCW, because WCW had all the money in the world. They had, because it was billionaire Ted Turner. Bigger contracts were during that time also on WCW side. See, guaranteed money, less work time. They're trying to compete with that. So at that time, he was going to take David Arquette and try to make him as the guy, you know, because like I said before, they had Mike Tyson, and he did the same thing with Mike Tyson.
But not just making him the guy.
No.
I mean, like putting him, like they put him in the ring in the first place. David Arquette's not a wrestler. But like, this is a dream for David Arquette.
This is a
so
dream.
He agrees to that.
So he agrees to doing that.
But then they end up giving David Arquette the title.
Give him the world title. And people of today always make arguments that he should never have won the title. He only beat the guy who's in charge, which is Eric Bischoff. He pinned him on an episode of Thunder. It's not like he's pinning Ric Flair.
No, he's pinning the manager.
Because if it was Ric Flair, of course, then the world, you know, everybody's heads will explode.
Should be pointed out, David Arquette, when he was told this, thought it was a terrible idea and wanted to stop this immediately. He knew the crowds would not accept this. But they pressured him into doing it. And again, he's this huge wrestling fan, and who wouldn't want the title?
Absolutely. That's why I actually like David Arquette, because after all he did with, you know, winning the title, and because he got paid during that time, you know, because if you're the world champion, you're getting big money no matter what.
Yeah.
He never deposited to his bank account or anything like that. He actually gave it to charities, which actually he gave it to two of my favorites, Owen Hart, because he was a big fan of actually his. He gave all of his paychecks and everything else he ever made from WCW to him, and also Brian Pillman to his foundation. He died pretty young of his age.
Unfortunately, two wrestlers that fell in completely unexpected situations.
Yeah, because Owen had the freak accident, falling from the rafters from God knows how many feet it was.
Yeah.
And well, Brian Pillman himself, after his car accident, he had the injuries he suffered and pain he was suffering. He went to pills and all that kind
Yeah.
of thing. Was well known, dying at a Minnesota hotel of acute heart attack.
So here's the question, because a lot of people like to blame David Arquette or the situation surrounding David Arquette, depending upon how you want to frame it, as being the thing that killed the WCW. Do you think that that's an appropriate way to look at it?
Yeah, so that's like one of the nails in the coffin. That was probably, the one that, there was like plenty like nails, but that was the one that that was it.
Yeah.
You had a couple other things, like, you had NWO, which it started out being a nice concept. It was like 4 or 5, maybe 6 people at a time, and they're like the group that like to attack people, and they're always cool. They're wearing, the bandanas. They're wearing the black and white, which actually, with the NWO, came from Japan. Eric Bischoff went over to overseas, went to Japan, which is called New Japan Pro Wrestling, which actually still in existence today. He actually went over there and found that it was 4 or 5, same thing, but not the name itself, NWO, but he found there was some group over there that was named. It's in Japanese, so I can't really understand that. But the concept was he found NWO. That's another thing. I mean, also when Vince Russo came to WCW, that was another nail in the coffin. But he claims in interviews and podcasts, because he actually had his own podcast now, he actually came out and said that it was already a sinking ship. It's a Titanic already, over egos and who wants to be the guy kind of thing, because with the contracts alone, the only person who ever had creative control was Hulk Hogan, and with him having control of his own character, that was one of the nails in the coffin. Which after Ready to Rumble was made, there was Bash at the Beach 2000. They had Hulk Hogan beating Jeff Jarrett, but the thing was the way he was pinned, kind of thing.
Hey everybody, this is John Michael. When I first edited this video, I put in a 10-second clip from Bash at the Beach so we could get a better understanding as to what Nick was referring to. It was well within the realm of fair use copyright since it was brief and we were using it for purposes of criticism and education. But when I uploaded this video to YouTube, the WWE claimed the rights to that 10-second spot, rendering the entire video unwatchable. I may be in the right here, but it would be silly for me to fight the WWE. They have millions of subscribers. I currently have 50. So instead, I put together a dramatic reproduction. Enjoy!
We all knew, Scott. I knew you knew. As much as you won't admit it, Matt, you knew that Hogan would make it back here to Bash at the Beach.
No, I knew that he'd never ever miss a big pay-per-view payday. What's Chef doing?
Hang on a minute.
What's Chef doing? Is it Halloween Havoc all over again?
Russo's talking.
Wait a minute.
What's he saying?
Russo, I think told Jared to lie down. What's going on?
What's going on?
He just threw the world title to Hogan. What the?
That's why this company is in the damn shape it's in, because of bull like this.
My God, this is real life. 1, 2, 3.
And I think, my personal opinion, Vince Russo is the one that killed WCW, not just the David Arquette and the NWO
This is a
formation.
lot of poor decisions,
and
all stacking on top of each other.
Yeah, and another nail in the coffin is the not utilizing what the talent they had, because they had the cruiserweights.
Yeah.
The light heavyweights, and there actually was stealing the show.
Yeah.
But you have big names from back then. They're still, passé.
Well, they were passing on a lot of people that ended up getting into the WWE and becoming big names. John Cena, I believe, is one of them, and there's a few others. I'm not as big a wrestling fan, so I can't start listing them off. But yeah.
Yeah, like Chris Jericho.
Chris Jericho.
Chris Jericho was the guy that Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko are like guys that I gravitate to. I'm more, because you know me, I'm more like a purist. I'm not into the nostalgia of talent or soap opera or anything like that. So I gravitated towards that.
Do you think Jimmy the King is actually supposed to be based on Jimmy the King Lawler?
People say that. It could be anything, like a poor man's version of Jerry the King Lawler. So I mean, there's some similarities, with the Crown and Jimmy King instead of Jerry King.
Is Mean Gene Okerlund sexy?
Very. Very, very.
I was so happy to see him like in this movie in the
Yeah.
first place, because that guy's got to be like the face of wrestling just in general.
Yeah, well, like the announcer, like he was the guy, you know, he was with AWA, was based out of Minnesota, ran by Vern Gagne, that's what he got to start. And then after that, he went to WWF, up to New York. And then, you know, he had his time there, and then the regimes changed over. He got old. So what they do in WCW, that the common theme is, oh, we're going to take former talent they made money, we'll try to make money with them.
What'd you think of the 3-cage match?
So the triple cage match.
Triple cage match.
That was actually a concept. So Kevin Sullivan, who was the booker, came up with an idea one day. He's like, oh, let's do a triple cage, because he had a similar concept down at the Florida Championship Wrestling at one point. So it was the pyramid of the triple cage, you know, because you had the Hell in the Cell in WWF, which, dead alone, I mean, they actually did another thing called Kennel from Hell match, which is actually was a small cage, and then they had a Hell in a Cell on there, and then they had like, it was like a kennel, you know, because they had dogs around the ring. It's just, it got ugly. I mean, that was a Big Boss Man against Al Snow during that time. They were having a feud with the dogs, and,
Right.
you know, they all cultivated in the Kennel from Hell match.
How about the four-man massacre as a wrestling move?
Oh, the four-man massacre. All it is just it's just a diving headbutt.
It's just 4 people diving
Yeah,
headbutt.
and alone, it is a very dangerous move, you know, because you're literally, if you don't do it right, you are going to get a concussion, and
You actually go
your memory
headfirst into
loss.
something. I mean, the whole entire point is you don't actually hit anybody with this thing.
No. Like most moves here, you're trying to protect yourself, and you're working with somebody else also. They're trying to protect themselves. So you're trying to not hit. If it is, you're ricocheting on someone. You're not really hitting on like full on.
One of the characters is supposed to be a cop. His dad wants him to be a cop. He drags him off at one point in time when they end up back in Wyoming. And he's trying to explain to his dad, this is my dream. I want to be in wrestling somehow.
Absolutely.
And his dad responds that just because it's your dream doesn't make it right or noble. And that Adolf Hitler had a dream, and so didn't Manson.
Yeah, Charles Manson, yep.
Charles Manson. Doesn't mean that having a dream is such a great idea.
Yeah.
Is having a dream, is there such an idea as a stupid dream?
There's no like stupid dream. I mean, you always have to have a backup plan.
Yeah.
In life, you know, I mean, you got to go to, if you want, you know, get an education and everything else. If you really want to go for your dream, I say go for it.
Yeah.
That's how, you know, people are they're gonna falsify you by saying, you know, crucify you by saying, you know, it's stupid, or whatever subject matter that you're gonna go for. They may not agree, but deep down in your heart, it is the right thing.
I was wondering, like, while we're actually talking about their characters and what they're doing, the other character ends up becoming Jimmy the King's manager by the time we get to the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering, like, do you think that like some random kid could just be a manager? Like, what's the qualities of a good manager for a wrestler?
So today-wise, there's no manager say.
They're not actually doing any managing.
It's not a manager, because there's another thing that's lost in the professional wrestling world is the act of being the manager. Back in the 80s and 90s, you have, you know, Paul Heyman, you have Jimmy Hart, you have Bobby the Brain Heenan, you have Precious Paul Ellering, who was with the Road Warriors, which was a very good tag team. The only one who actually was a manager was Paul Ellering. They do, you know, the bookends.
Yeah.
They do more of making sure that the talent are going from place to place. That's how to become a manager. And then there's the other manager back in the 80s, 90s, which is Bobby the Brain Heenan, which is just nostalgia alone. You know, he's talking.
Right.
So a manager is just pretty much trying to get a talent over. People who can't speak for themselves, they have a manager, and that's why Bobby the Brain Heenan, which God rest his soul, I think it's, you know, the greatest manager of all time.
But can anybody do it? Do you think you could go grab a kid who's just like, oh, this kid's got charisma, he's got a gimmick, let's throw him up there?
You know, you have to test it out. I mean, some people have it, and some people don't. You know, you got to have qualities. Today-wise, it's just, you just have to talk.
Yeah.
You know? And that's like a lost art. The only one is actually like, he doesn't call himself a manager. He calls it the advocate. And that's Paul Heyman. He's the advocate of the reigning, defending world heavyweight champion in the world today, which is Brock Lesnar.
Do you have a favorite scene from the movie, out of curiosity?
So alone in the movie, I actually the only scene I actually like was towards
Most of the movie don't like. Well, I mean, like there are some. Like this is the thing is like this is not a great movie. There are good scenes in there. Like that wrestling scene at the very beginning in the convenience store where they break from like this really dopey joke about how my Slurpee smells like poop, and then switch over to like, oh, I like dragged you into the ring, which is the convenience store, and then we just start rumbling. Yeah. That's some great cinematography just in general.
Yeah, actually.
But you were talking about the scene that you actually liked.
Oh, yeah. The scene I actually liked was probably towards the end when they had Diamond Dallas Page, which is the villain, who's facing Jimmy King. They had Sting, was the guy for WCW, because WWF they had Stone Cold and The Rock. Sting always stayed. Sting was always the guy that everybody went to WWF. He was the loyal soldier. Yeah. My favorite part of that was when Diamond Dallas Page is climbing up to the triple cage and trying to win the World Heavyweight title. Yeah. And Sting from the Rafters, because he's famous for the Rafters, came around and hit Diamond Dallas Page, and he flew all the way down 2-story, 1-story, and completely fell.
I don't think anybody was expecting Sting to not just switch sides in this, but it was great to actually see him come out of nowhere. Yeah. We're out of time, but it was great having you on, Nick.
Absolutely.
It was great talking about the WCW as well as this movie with you. Hey, if you like this video, click like or subscribe or something along those lines. I don't know, you can figure it out. You're tech savvy. Take care, everybody.